First of all, let's thank God for the blessing of a brand new day and the opportunity to once again enhance self. God could have made our whole life one sunrise and one sunset, but he chose to break it down. So no matter how dark it has been, today we have been blessed with the light of another day. And we got a guest on here today. This man is Blue Pill. He's worked with the late, great Dr. Sebi. He's also was a part of the online media division for Sony. Worked with Nipsey Hussle and things of that nature.
Yes.
Also was a major player in the community conscious movement, as well as publishing books. He got 3 more coming out this year. He also owns a nutrition company and is a 50-year-old bodybuilder. Blue Pill, man, is glad to have you.
Yes, indeed.
What's up,
48 years old, but
48.
we getting there. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
They tell them to save you 2 years, man. You try to add an extra 2 years in there, man.
We shaving years off, but I got you though.
Absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely,
indeed.
man. We excited to have you, man.
I'm excited to be here.
And definitely to learn the guys who watch
indeed.
Mud2TheSubs, and it's all about that movement of trying
That's
to
right.
empower yourself and grow and come up. And
Yes,
you know, we
indeed.
know you're from Bronx, born in Bronx. Is that correct?
I was born in the Bronx. Yes.
Okay. And you also lived in a few other boroughs or something like that?
Yeah, I was born in the Bronx, bred in Brooklyn, cut my teeth in Harlem. You know what I'm saying? And internationally traveled, world known.
Wow. Tell us about your childhood, man. What was it like when you coming from the mud?
Well, again, you know, I was born in the Bronx in 1975, so it's the same thing that, you know, we've always heard about the Bronx in the beginning stages of hip hop. It was a nuclear fallout zone.
Right.
You feel me? I was attempting to make sense of my environment as a child because I came from a very loving environment in terms of my household.
Okay.
And then you get outside and it was subterranean. You know what I mean? But I was always into art, even as a child. So even seeing my environment, you know, repeatedly embellished with different artwork. They call that graffiti today, you know, from the subways to the buildings. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I just knew that there was a narrative that was attempting to be told that people weren't telling. So I was very inquisitive about why so much ugliness and beauty is intertwined. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then the people that I saw were strong. This was before crack cocaine, and then I saw crack cocaine. So these contrasts were always present, forever present in my life. And then at the tender age of 5, my mother took us to St. Croix. She was pregnant with my youngest brother, who the world affectionately knows as KT, the arts degree. And she was anemic. She had an iron situation, and her parents come from St. Croix, and they told her you should go back to St. Croix and seek out a bush doctor for herbs.
Okay.
And then we went to St. Croix, and upon her visit to St. Croix, a friend of hers that had left Harlem to move to St. Croix, she was like, let me introduce you to this herbalist I know. And at 9 p.m. at night, she took her into the rainforest on top of a mountain.
Wow.
And she met Dr. Sebi. And
Wow.
that changed our lives. So by the time I came back to New York, I was like 11 or 12.
Okay.
And crack hit. And it was a totally different situation.
Oh, I can
You know what I'm
imagine.
saying? But that's been my life story in terms of the intertwining between beauty and ugliness and attempting to find the artistic, you know, the throughway between them two.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
That was heavy.
And you know what I'm saying? Knowing, again, as a herbalist, that even though we come from the mud, you know what I'm saying? That's where everything grows from.
Absolutely.
So as a herbalist, you know, or watching the herbalist, you have a different appreciation for soil in the mud. All good things come from soil. All
Absolutely.
good things come from the mud as well.
Absolutely. I mean, Dr. Sebi, he became a worldwide phenomenon, man,
Absolutely.
a worldwide name. So when you met, he was your stepdad? Is that correct?
He ultimately ended up becoming my stepdad, but when I met him at the age of 5, he was my mother's herbalist.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And she convinced him, based on what she had witnessed, because she had visited New York during that time period of meeting him. Like, you know, he was still on the island, and she would come back to New York, and she was like, yo, all of my friends that I went to school with are zombies now. And she convinced him to leave the peacefulness of that island and that mountain and that rainforest and come back to the States and do some work. And ironically, the first places they came was Philadelphia because they had Teddy Pendergrass as a client.
Wow.
And they were able to facilitate herbal treatments to him where he was able to feel movement in his toes and in his, his parts.
Right.
And that was a major breakthrough.
All natural, everything.
Straight up. It's part of his legend.
Wow.
Undeniable. Feel me?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they ended up, afterwards, they came to Brooklyn and they set up the world famous Usha Herbal Institute, which is located the same place that the Barclays is at right now.
Okay.
On Flatbush Avenue. And that's when my mother cured the first AIDS case in, I think, 1985 or something like that. One of them dates, and that's the case that became the case that they got prosecuted for, and that famous prosecution is what catapulted him into that, historical stratosphere. My mother often gets undermentioned in that, but there was 3 people on that case, and she was one of them.
Well, I don't know if I heard you correctly.
Yes.
You said somebody got prosecuted for curing AIDS?
Yes.
But not forgiving it, huh?
No. Curing it, that part, right?
That's weird. Okay.
That part.
Tell me about that. Why would you get prosecuted for curing AIDS?
Robert Abrams, who was the state attorney at the time, told him that they had to pull that ad because Dr. Fauci and, the rest of the people, for those that are familiar what happened, in 2020 with that concoction,
right?
They was cooking up that batch back then. So they had plans, and here comes these people out the rainforest interrupting their plans, talking about, let me be clear. The first client, his name was Frank White.
Okay.
Just like the infamous Frank White. This was before the movie came out, of course. He was a HIV patient in hospice.
Okay.
And his nurse had came because she heard about the legend of what they was doing with these herbs, right? Because my mother was putting ads in the Village Voice, which is a periodical in New York that caters to the LGBT community, and HIV and AIDS was exclusively their thing at one point.
Okay, I remember that.
So the hospice nurse came and got a treatment for pneumonia, not HIV, because my mother didn't know what that was. So Sebi wasn't there. He was on, he was off somewhere, I think, visiting another country. He might have been in Puerto Rico or something like that. But he told her to prescribe the protocol that he had taught her for pneumonia. She did that, and then like a month or 2 later, the nurse came back, and the report went from HIV positive to HIV negative, and then she was like, "How did you do this?"
Wow.
And then once they caught the gravity of what just took place, and it's like, "Oh, this is the thing that everybody talking about now." You know what I'm saying? But we got results.
Wow.
They thought that they was offering the world a service by running the ad and with the proof to say, "Look what we did."
Okay.
And that brought down the
hammer.
That brought the hammer of the government on them, rather than them investigating and say what you did and how can we do it. They was like, "Nah, you disrupting this $1 billion play that we got." Mm-hmm. And they attempted to use the weight of the government to squash them, and it was not successful.
And you was a kid at this time.
Yeah, and they told my mother that, because I remember we was 10, I believe, so it might have been 85, because the way that they wanted my mother to turn states on Sebi, and the way that they threatened her, they was like, "We're gonna make your children's lives a living hell." We was 10.
Wow.
And that didn't shake her up. She still stood on principle, 10 toes down. And again, she's the only person on that case, because there's been a lot of skepticism about whether he took a plea or not. What we do know is that she didn't.
Right. Well, shout out to Mom for standing 10 toes down.
Shout out to Mama Pill.
I mean, coming from a place like, you said that Dr. Sebi was in Honduras, or no, excuse me, it was St. Croix.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And somebody that's in touch with nature, and that's herbalist, and then to live there, because you were there for a while. Am I correct? And then to come back to the Bronx.
Well, I came back to Brooklyn.
I mean?
Just when I moved to Brooklyn, I moved to Flatbush, Brooklyn. I visited my father for Christmas,
right?
And he had moved to Brooklyn, and this was the very first time I was introduced to a Big Mac, fries, and a shake.
Yeah,
and I called Moms like, "Moms, I ain't coming back." Let me paint the picture. Sebi was experimenting with the diet thing at that time.
Okay.
And we was being fed rice cakes and sea moss pudding, sea moss, everything sea moss tea. And it ain't like sea moss of today.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I ain't know what was going on. It was a culture shock. And I was like, So this is I know the importance of the palate. I know the importance, you know what I'm saying, of what food can do to you. I literally made a life decision based on food.
Wow.
I was like, yo, I'm pulling up and I'm gonna hang out here for a little while because whatever that was that I just tasted, I want more of it. And I was like, y'all got them rice cakes.
Sea Moss, I got that.
I got that. But you know, they ended up coming to the States right after that, not too long. But I still was cool on the rice cakes. Like, nah.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of us, when we come up
exploring the Big Macs,
while we exploring Big Macs and drinking milkshakes and living in the hood, some of us get in trouble. I know your story was you went through some trouble, some trials and tribulations, got yourself in a little trouble, but you came out of that, alhamdulillah, learning leadership skills and going into business.
Absolutely.
Tell us about that a little bit.
Well, I hopped off the porch. We was like 14. I have a twin brother, right? So it was me and my brother growing up in Flatbush, very adventurous. You know, it was just a whole new terrain, and my friends was boosters.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And but my father was an English professor. He's a professor of African American literature. So he used to take us to Bloomingdale's for him to buy polo, but just with the horsey. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then he would buy us some polo because he's like, I want y'all to wear weird. And I was like, what the hell is this? You know what I'm saying? Like, I wasn't really feeling the polo thing initially until I wore it to school, and I started seeing the response and the reaction, and they was like, oh, y'all got polo? And I was like, oh, y'all on this? So then my friends, they was the Izod posse, so they was boosting Izod and Lacoste. And we had the polo on, and I just started seeing the visceral reaction that people was giving towards clothing. I'm 90 pounds dripping wet, you know what I'm saying, at that time. But I got all the attention in the world, you know, popularity is soaring. And for two kids coming from the islands initially into that particular environment, and Flatbush is the little Caribbean. It's Trinidad, Jamaican, Haitian, Bajan, you name it, all of the entire Caribbean is condensed in that one area. You know, so everybody is from somewhere else, and everyone's looking to fit in. Everyone is looking to get a slice of American pie.
Wow.
And you know, for whatever reason, in the late 80s, early 90s, the fashion aesthetic was the way that people validated themselves, if you will. You know, so these social circles that we had been introduced to was built around that. And me being raised in a very revolutionary household from both my parents, my father told us a lot of history about what the European had done. And in my mind, I was like, all right, so I'm going to engage in retail reparations. I'm a free the cotton.
Oh,
and
wow. Retail. I never heard it put that way before.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, so this is what y'all on? So I'm hitting it for both sides. I'm like, oh, this is what the Negroes is on. Y'all showing up and opening doors and just being an open society because somebody got a piece of fabric on. And then, oh, you know what I mean? Y'all overcharging this cotton for these people, and this is what they identify themselves with because they want to look like y'all. So I figured it out. And I was like, okay, well, I can revolt against them and then make money off of them and then be that dude all the while.
Wow. And
that's the path that I took. That was my early entrepreneurial skills. And then I'm playing cops and robbers because every single day that we are running down on these establishments, the authorities is, so I'm naturally in my rebellious stage as a Scorpio. So I'm rebelling against the system. I'm rebelling against my parents. You know what I mean? I'm gaining popularity and I'm making bread and I'm utilizing brain over brawn.
Right.
Because like I said, I'm yay high, 90 pounds dripping wet, and my crew is, you know what I'm saying, grown folks that I don't want to say that they didn't have a mind of their own. They just needed direction. They didn't come into it with the foresight that we did, looking all the way, you know, making more of it than what it was.
Right.
Wow. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Now, you spoke about making a decision based off of food.
Absolutely.
I know we kind of fast forward a little bit with that, but
yeah, we good.
Do you think that, coming from a place of, you said eating rice cakes and sea moss,
yes,
and then coming to America and then going to Big Macs and sodas and fries. At the time, you didn't understand that what you were doing was was actually better for you than the Big Macs and so forth and so on.
Even if I did, again, culture's built around food. You know what I'm saying? And families built around the dinner table. So I'm with my father now, and he wants to assert himself in terms of, yo, our connection, we're going to connect through this food because I don't know what y'all doing over there with them folks, but this is what I do. And he had a wife at that time, so the stepmother, she started making me blueberry pancakes. I'm being introduced to dairy. It was just a whole new experience, and like I said, it did something for my palate. The food was saltier, you know what I'm saying? And everything that the food represented was inclusive of this new experience that I was having, right? My friends ate the same way. I'm being introduced to chicken wings and fried rice. It's just the dynamic of my social environment and then you got to get a little bit more aggressive in that environment. So the rice cakes is not going to work. And then I saw that dynamic in St. Croix because they was very antagonistic against Dr. Sebi in St. Croix. They called him an obia man.
What's that?
A witch doctor.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Right? The country is heavily Christian, but more so Catholic. And he was curing people with herbs, and they consider herbs or anything from the bush kind of witch doctor activity because that's the same place that the people that do the spells and stuff like that nature, they're getting that from there. Oh, you cure blindness. Or you using magic to do that. It's just not the herbs. You feel me? And his mainstay would be Genesis 1:29, herbs are for the healing of the nation. So he used to proselytize and always bring them back to the Bible, but they wasn't feeling that. And I remember times when they ran down and everything on the office, and I was just like, you got to be able to defend yourself. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know if the food had something to do with it, but when I started getting that salt and that sugar in me back home, it was a whole different. Started getting that hot sauce in me. It was a whole different dynamic. And like I said, being introduced into the streets and getting thrown into that environment in Flatbush at the time, late 80s, it was aggressive. Crack had hit, you know what I'm saying? People was getting their heads taken off, and you was not like, you knew what was going. It was warfare outside. And I think that the diet was very conducive to that. Now
I'm assuming, I'm just at that age when you came and you moved back with your father.
Yes.
I'm assuming based off what you eat, what you were eating when you were with your mother, you notice a difference in yourself, in
that's what I'm talking about.
Your mental, your health, everything.
I was wigging out, but it was conducive to my environment as well. You know what I mean? I absolutely did. Yes.
Wow. And that's like a form of corruption through the stomach or
and all corruption happens through the stomach.
Wow.
Later on in life, I would read a book called The Aquarian Gospel, and the Aquarian Gospel says the abomination, right, Shaitan, exists in the bowels of man because the gut bacteria got more neurons in the gut than it does in the actual brain. So these different inclinations that we have to do things that are haram is based on the food. That's why, you know what I'm saying, there's such an emphasis on certain things being halal and not ingesting the blood of a dead animal. Why? Because that animal is going to give you signals that's either going to induce fear, right? Whatever that animal was going through when that animal was slaughtered, or you're going to get the bovine hormones.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And I know this for a fact because I had to go to the penitentiary at some point. And that's when I really found out the effect that food has on behavioral sciences and things of that nature.
Now, do you eat like do you eat like beef, chicken, or you just stay away from those type of things?
I'm plant based.
Okay.
But I'm also not married to that. You know what I mean? That's been my title for quite some time. But being back in the gym and again, being reintroduced to a very aggressive nature of what that entails and training, like you're training for war. I'm not dismissive of the fact that if my body calls for it, you know what I'm saying, I will indulge here and there because I don't meet too many plant-based warriors. You know what I mean? I don't meet too many plant-based people that got blood in their mouth. And that's a figurative speaking, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, you still got to have the appetite that's needed and necessary to do the things that's needed and necessary to not only defend yourself, but your people. And there was this whole discussion about, you know, societal setups and, all right, so the vegan, y'all could be the priesthood, but the warriors, you got to feed them some beef every now and then. There's certain places that you have to be able to get to when you need to get to them places. You know what I'm saying? And just like you need certain animal fats and lipids for certain things in the brain, I still believe that there's certain things inclination-wise that you need in your system to do certain things that need to be done, which can remain unspoken. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Wow. Now, is there any other substitute? Now, just, you know, because I don't want to dwell too much on the food, but is it like, for example, you said the body calls for a certain type of maybe chicken, maybe cow, beef, whatever. Is there something that you can do to substitute that, which would give you the same, would take away that actual need for that particular?
I mean, I've been very successful thus far. You know what I'm saying? Supplementing that and things of that nature, but there, you know, I've also noticed that my body sends signals. I don't think that I come from a bloodline that has been purely vegan. That's an experiment. You know, this generation and based on what Sebi brought, you know what I mean? But when I've done blood work, when I've done spiritual readings, when I've done a lot of different things, they be like, yeah, you don't come from a vegan bloodline. Yep. My mother coming from St. Croix, her people ate fish. Her people were people that indulged in seafood, a coastal people. You know what I'm saying? My father's people, when he did his DNA, they came from Benin. You know, they're not vegan over there. So it's always been told to me, like, are you being true to yourself and true to your bloodline, right? And I'm just truthful by saying I'm dealing with a social experiment, you know, that initially was induced by my stepfather. I didn't know him or anybody in his family or surroundings to be ripped, fit, you know what I'm saying? And with the ish. Like, I didn't know that. I knew them to be somewhat docile, you know what I mean? And not ready for war. You know, talked a good one, but I never saw it. So what examples do I have? And even some of the dudes that I know, and it's cool to be a peacenik, it's cool to be a tree hugger, it's cool to be a beatnik and all of that stuff, but we don't live in that society. We don't live in those environments. You know what I'm saying? I believe in staying war ready.
Wow. I want to back up a little bit just as a Mud to the Subs teaching moment to some of our fans out there. But you said that Dr. Sebi was considered a witch doctor, which is obviously bad because he was just using herbs. He wasn't doing any type of voodoo. But that same person stood on his beliefs and what he represented and then went to another place and found himself curing Teddy Pendergrass. Isn't it amazing how when you have a goal or a dream and you want to be successful, just because the people around you don't believe in it doesn't mean that it's not a good dream. It means that you need to present it to somebody who's on the same page you are. Right. And so many of us have to learn from that, because that was definitely a teaching moment for you or for anybody that experienced that, because he went from being so-called witch doctor to being world known. Dr. Sebi's a worldwide name.
Right.
And he just got away from a small-minded people.
Exactly.
But that's inducive, like you said, from going to the mud to the subs.
Absolutely.
Right? That you get to the subs and you could soil a whole different environment, but that was not available to you when you was in the mud because they told you this ain't for you. But how did they know? How do they know you and what your destination is? And you know what I'm saying? Like, there are people that go from the muds to the subs and they get to the subs and they humanize the people from the mud because the people that's in the subs didn't even know. They like, oh, well, I ain't even know that y'all was like this. You feel me?
Yeah.
So it takes somebody to get to that space and that place to pot a whole new field, you know what I'm saying, and fertilize a whole new soil to bring up a whole new, you know what I'm saying, situation. Wow. And yeah, his thing was relegated to a small island and they were not appreciative of what he had to offer because they was looking through a corrupted lens that only said, you know, my indoctrination is tied to the medical establishment. My indoctrination is tied to these retail establishments on the island, right? It's tied to the food.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Like you could walk around the island and they roasting pigs outside with the apple because Puerto Rico is right across the water. You can see it. You know how they give it up. And if you don't, I'm telling you, you know, they heavy on the pork. But I'm like, y'all reading the book, and the book say that the pig is forbidden, but it's a whole new conversation. Mm. I'm an ordained minister too, so, you know, I be getting into them places, and I had to do that in defense of the fact that, like, when I went down south, I wear a lot of crystals and stones and things of that nature, and I was getting attacked. I was getting attacked by these Christians left and right. I noticed it first when I moved to LA, and the old women would attack me, right? They be like,
he said the old women.
Yeah, they like, you got all them jewels on, but I don't see no rosaries and no crucifix. And they used to just be hating on a Sunday. I just couldn't get it. Why they'd be so peaceful until they start criticizing the fact that I had my jewelry on. And then I experienced it in the South, so I started researching and going deep into the book to see what this was about, because it was a popular pastor that was starting this stuff down there. And then I learned that there was so much that they didn't know about their own religion that I actually got ordained in it just to teach them, because you got to come to them as them for them to even hear you.
Wow, what you just said though rocked me a little bit. You said they were looking at him through a corrupted lens.
Yes.
And speaking about Dr. Sebi, and so many of us are working to be successful, and we can lose confidence because we're judging the person that's looking at us and giving their opinion, when in reality they're just looking through a corrupted lens. Right now, my partner and I, you know, we have Mud2TheSubs. Shout out to TBIC, the best in sports entertainment. You know, that's another podcast and movement that we're moving. But you know, we're going into the YouTube space. We're going into online space. This is our new digital media is our platform, and you were a pioneer of that, especially when you were online training when you work with Nipsey Hussle. So tell us a little bit about what you've learned in social media and what you've learned in the internet and what you can teach the people in regards to controlling the rights to their content and where they can go with it.
So I'll just rewind real quick and catch us up. So I mentioned that I did a penitentiary stint, right?
Uh-huh.
And that's where I initially started. Well, I took my Shahada in 96 in there as well.
Alhamdulillah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I come home. I'm physically fit, you know what I'm saying? And the same stores that I used to boost from, now I started modeling apparel for, Macy's in particular, right? Until the head of security, he became an executive in the business, and he was like, we just can't do that, you know what I'm saying? He was like, you know what I mean? We got a whole dossier on these people, on this individual. He just can't be walking down. They had me in print catalog at first, so now I started doing runway stuff. And I was managed by Iron Mike. Shout out to Jackie Rowe and Iron Mike Management. And before I got incarcerated, I went to Brooklyn College for a year and a half. And I took up journalism, but I didn't finish school because I had caught my cases during final season. But I still wanted to always be a journalist. So we working with Iron Mike. We had a duplex in Metro Tech, Brooklyn, 81 Willoughby Street. Zap Judah was a client.
Shout out to Zach.
Yeah, a bunch of other people. Curtis Jackson used to come and give out turkeys, but then the brother Homicide was working. It was real weird, you know what I'm saying? That environment was something else. But we had hosted a friend of mine that came to do a meeting, and the meeting that they were doing was the planning phase for a hip hop newspaper that ultimately was launched in 2001 called Four Corners. And I told her, I was like, yo, I want to do that. You know what I'm saying? I always wanted to do my journalism, and I got the green light to do that. So I did journalism in the newspaper from 01 to 05. And then the internet came around. The internet became a thing. And I was telling the publisher, I was like, yo, we got to move from print journalism into online media. He wanted distribution all along in the bodegas of New York City. So he didn't see the vision. You know what I'm saying? He didn't see the digital vision because he was stuck on brick and mortar. because he wanted to lock the bodegas down to control distribution for music and different items. And he was just using the newspaper as a front.
Right.
The passion with me as a writer and a journalist was like, nah, I wanna get this news out and these stories. So in 2005, I jumped on the internet, and Jacqueline Rowe, matter of fact, was the one that told us in 2005 to open up a YouTube. YouTube had just opened. You know, not a lot of people know how YouTube got created.
How did it get created?
Because of the Janet Jackson clip from the Super Bowl.
Oh, when Usher, when he pulled off.
Not Usher. Justin Timberlake.
Timberlake.
Yeah, so you couldn't find that footage nowhere other than the internet on a little site that just was created called YouTube, right? So the nipple gave birth.
Wow.
And if you would allow me as well, because I'm a metaphysician and I'm an esoteric teacher of sciences, right? So the actual incident took place on either February 2nd or February 3rd, and it was in line with a Celtic sun ritual called the embolic ceremony, which is a lactating ceremony that deals with fertility. Hence the fact that she had a sun ring around her nipple. The nipple is about fertility and giving birth. So that nipple gave birth to YouTube. Okay? I didn't actually open up my page until January 1st, 2007. The same day I opened Facebook is the same day I opened YouTube. At this time, I'm in broadcast journalism. So I'm taking the print interviews that I'm doing with rappers and actors, and now I'm bringing the camera along with me and catching footage. And at first we put it on public access TV, Street Knowledge TV. We had the #1 show on Saturday nights at 9 p.m., which is a major slot. And we were showing videos and interviews. I took that same footage and started putting it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And then I was doing red carpet events, right? So I'm getting Nas interviews, Jay-Z interviews. We doing concerts and stuff like that. And it's on YouTube. Nobody else got no footage on YouTube of major stuff like that. So I got 1 million views by the time we get to 2008. I had a fight with the NYPD on 125th because I would hustle in front of the Apollo in the daytime selling apparel to because we wasn't making money on the media. We was just doing what we was passionate about initially, right? We was supplementing our income by hustling on 125th. I had a fight with 8 NYPD officers in front of the Apollo, and I kind of beat them, and the block was hot. So I couldn't hustle uptown for a period of time. So we had to go and find something else to do. So me and him went down to 42nd Street to link up with a partner of his named Bang Out. Bang Out was a producer. He had just produced a track on 50 Cent's album that he got a Grammy for.
Right.
So now he had moved from Brownsville to Times Square in a high rise. He was living it up, right? So we go and see Bang Out. Bang Out was like, yo, my man, he need a videographer, right? For this artist that he got this shelved on Epic Records. I'm going to introduce y'all. So he introduced us to his man, Johnny Shipes. Johnny Shipes is the CEO of Cinematic Music Group. Shipes is like, yo, I got an artist named Nipsey Hussle that I'm trying to get lit, right? Because we signed to Epic, but he don't got no motion. They got him on the shelf. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get a budget open and everything. I'm trying to do some things, yo. I need y'all to shoot a documentary for me, right? So we got to meet Big U and get the cosign to go to film in the 60s, because nobody with a camera has ever been co-signed to go and film in the 60s. So we do that, and then Shipes is like, yo, I'm going to bring you to Epic, right? So we can open up a budget for y'all, because I can't pay you out of pocket. So by the time we go to Epic and explain to them what we do, you know, and what services we have, they was like, oh, we was looking for somebody like y'all because we don't know anything about the internet. And we need to get some things popping. So they try to send us Sean Kingston. They try to sign us up with Young Berg. This when Young Berg had got that controversy. He had said something inflammatory about melanated women. And we was like, I don't want to work with him. You know what I'm saying? We want to work exclusively with Nipsey. I had met Nipsey, and for the first time ever, I didn't have to do the talking. You know what I'm saying? I'm captivated by this young man who's 19 years old, but deeper than the Mariana Trench. I'm like, wow. What type of dude is this? Like, who are you? You feel me? Like he had a vision. And I'm just captivated because I'm like, yo, like, again, the judging the book by its cover thing. That's why my name is Blue Pill, because so many people fall into these traps, you know, and I'm a twin, so I always be confused for somebody else my entire life. And I'm just like, y'all stay just doing dumb stuff. Y'all don't know no Blues Clues. Y'all just be rattling at the mouth all my life. There's never been a day in my life where I have not been called somebody else without someone taking time to figure it out.
Wow.
So this is just me just punching people in their face and just be like, y'all just slow, you know what I'm saying? And I'm going to show you. And plus, like, nobody should be able to access what the red pill is. You should be able to prove and come behind the curtain to see what something is. Like, something that is of such value should not be offered like this.
Oh, okay. Well, again, going back to Nipsey though, because I heard that he was like making a lot of money independently, and you know, like you said, so
yeah,
tell me a little bit about
when I met him,
how you own stuff, like as far as
I'm gonna get to that, right?
Yeah.
When I initially met him, he was, you know, selling the socks and the CDs out of the parking lot. That ultimately he ended up opening the store and things of that nature. So he always had a hustle in the grind. The same way that we was hustling on 125th, he was hustling on Crenshaw, right? Or Slauson for that matter. Once the whole Epic thing didn't come into fruition, you know, he had his run and everything, but his single didn't catch on because he couldn't get spins at the radio because the LAPD called the radio and told him that this guy got a gang injunction and you can't play his music. So Epic ended up shelving him again. So he had to go back to the grind.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And this is where he came up with an idea called pay. What I'm sure that y'all can find a name out specifically, but it's almost like, you know, you pay what you want. You know what I mean? For his particular mixtape, we have built an extraordinary online following for him that reached an international fan base. He had a strong European following, right? AKA white children loved him, right? And they was willing to pay more than $10 a CD, and he knew that, right? So he played off his authenticity factor that he really was the real deal. He just wasn't promoted right, and his fan base was able to really hold him up. So he had created all of these different models, even from $100 CD, $1,000 CD, all of these different things that he had attempted and tried and was successful at as an independent artist who did not have the backing of the machine.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
$100 CD.
Yeah. And Jay-Z bought a bunch of them. And that kind of, again, these are the things that added to his legend, right? And then the people pile on after the big homie does something like that. And, you know, he's just playing to these things and knowing the psychology of how people work. And rolling the dice and hitting a head crack without, you know, rolling the dice in the dark. You don't know what's going to happen. But believing and trusting in yourself and standing on principle. I've never met somebody who trusted in themselves as much as Nipsey. When you could not see the forest for the trees, he never deviated. He had a vision and he never deviated. He had always been able to create these very interesting media models. And up until the time that he transitioned, he was into crypto. You know what I mean? And he had launched the first retail store. There was he met a brother named Idris, and Idris gave him some RFID technology where, you know, before NFTs was even a thing, he was able to see the vision of how he can allow people to have an experience in his store. And his store went from a regular, I don't want to call it a hole in the wall mom and pop, but let's just say it went from a regular mom and pop sock spot to a high end boutique looking right on Crenshaw and Slauson, which is unprecedented within itself. So Nipsey was a innovator, a visionary, and again, he found out information about Sebi even after the fact of when me and him was interacting and interfacing. I think from because Sebi's grandson is Crip, and I think that he might have initially heard the information from him.
Okay. Right?
And he wanted to make the documentary on Sebi's life. Sebi had transitioned by that time in 2016, August 6th. So our roads was converging. I had stopped by his shop 3 weeks before he transitioned to see if he was there. I wanted to speak to him, and I didn't see him. His father was there, and I left a message. And then, you know, on March 31st, the brother got sent up.
Wow, that's heavy. It must have been definitely an experience to work with somebody that believed in themselves that much.
Extraordinary.
And a lot of times when we get around people that believe themselves, we have to remember that to the colorblind person, colors are crazy. You know? So you got to believe in what you're doing and keep going, man. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
You got some companies going too, right? I know you told me you own a nutrition company.
Yes. So
tell us about that.
In 2009, on November 14th, I started a company called 7 Heaven, and my first product for 7 Heaven was 7 Heaven Sea Moss, and I launched it at a Dr. Sebi event in Brooklyn. Shout out to a brother named King Simon, who I brought him to Brooklyn. This is the very first time that another brother in our community took the stage. This is a brother named Brother Polite. He was introduced that day, and I also introduced my sea moss. And this is another brother who I kind of like opened the door for and brought into, you know, this community called the Conscious Community, who I was instrumental of building these bricks from 2000 and 2001, going to lectures and just seeing the elders just, you know, boo-hooing about the fact that nobody is showing up to these events that's under the age of 40. I was the only one in the building, and I decided to put it on my back and bring the youth in and give it a hip-hop slant to make it appealing to the youth or what have you. So I introduced a lot of people into that dynamic, and Brother Polite was one of those people, unfortunately, but yet and still. The sea moss was introduced. After that, I started the very first alkaline water company. That was in 2007. That was a product that I had. And then at the same time I started the alkaline company, I started selling liquid gold, right? Monatomic gold, that was introduced to us by a brother named Dr. Delbert Blair. Fast forward to 2018, I met a young brother, another brother that we, you know, helped in the community named 19 Keys. And he expressed to me that he wanted to get into the gold business as well. And I felt that it was a wonderful opportunity to not only rebrand, but help the brother, you know, guide him into this whole entrepreneurial endeavor, specifically that's going to first go through our community and then out into the world, because I know how our community could be.
Right.
So I was like, you know, let me use whatever leverage that I have to shield this brother as he learns the ways and the mores of how to make, you know what I mean, get his way around what's going to be, you know, glass in the road and Donkey Kong barrels, because our community loves, you know what I'm saying, unfortunately, you know, throwing obstacles in young brothers' ways, you know what I mean? So me and the brother started this particular company called Gold Water, and Gold Water initially started out with monatomic gold, and he wanted to introduce colloidal gold. And by 2019, we started selling sea moss. Before, you know, the thing hit, we was doing the sea moss, and then we started doing sea moss pills with medicinal mushrooms in them, right? Doing something different. I always wanted to do something different than my mother and Sebi did, because they already did it. So I'm like, where can I take the game from here? And shout out to Black and Nobel, shout out to the brother Hawk, you know, and the whole Philly family that made their own inroads with the sea moss before 2020. I'm not talking about the explosion. I'm talking about the people that laid the foundation. You know what I'm saying? And I was coming out here in like 2011, 12, 13, 14. You know what I mean? All of them years when they was on Broad Street and people was looking at him like he was crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I remember I was there. Can't nobody tell me nothing.
Wow.
It was only him. And the sisters that was bringing that wave to him, because they was affiliated with Sebi, and they was attempting to make their mark, you know what I mean, and make their contribution, because Sebi was the one who templated sea moss in this country and took it from the Ras, because the Rastas was doing it dirty. They was putting sugar, goat milk in it, you know what I'm saying? And they was keeping it from the women and the children. They was only using it as an aphrodisiac, and we had freed it up. And I had winning like cultural wars in Flatbush with some of these dudes, because I was like, y'all bugging, you know what I mean? We're going to make it vegan. We're going to make it alkaline. We're going to make it part of something for the whole family.
Wow, that's nice.
So Gold Water, yeah. But when 2020 happened and we was kind of already positioned, we did 7 figures that year, you know, by standing up and using social media and our platform as influencers combined with the products to stand before the C19, and nobody that we know transitioned, you know what I'm saying? We was able to really help people get their lives together in the midst of all of that. And at the same time, subsequently, I had a brick and mortar that I was working with in Atlanta called Wadata, and I was an essential worker. I was outside every single day. I opened up Atlanta for lectures. I challenged every single thing that they was throwing at us because I already knew who Fauci was. So I knew there was a hoax. And I was like, nah, we're going to stand up and we're going to show you. Ain't nobody around us sick. I'm around hundreds of people. You feel me? I'm traveling. I'm going all around the world. You know what I mean? And I'm doing 7 figures. So
hold on. Let's say that again. For those of y'all that don't know, 7 figures is $1 million. Yeah. And nobody don't need no explanation to what $1 million is. So he definitely embodies
and they seen
subs.
It. They seen it on, you know, because we made it very social on social media, what we was doing with the garbage bags every other day to the post office, shipping around the world, you know what I mean, getting in front of this thing and just building up bodies. And I adopted a philosophy called being unapologetically optimistic, no matter what they were saying. Huh?
Say that again.
Unapologetically optimistic, regardless of what they say on the news, regardless of what your timeline says. I'm gonna show up every single day with a smile on my face. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that.
And we're gonna do business, and I'm gonna show you that it's not a scam because the people we doing big, we're gonna show testimonials, right? And again, we're just gonna go places and do things that's opposite of everything that they say don't do.
That actually sounds like a hot clothing line. Unapologetically optimistic. I would wear that.
That's right.
That represents everything we embody.
Yes.
You might have asked you a question. So, everybody that comes to Mud2TheSubs, I ask this question, and the people are waiting, and we want to know if you were to give out 3 pieces of advice to anybody, because this brother then did a lot. 3 pieces of advice to anybody that's working to go from the mud to the subs and grind and grow. What 3 things would you tell them can assist them in their journey?
You know, trust the universe, which is trust the process, because you have to, you know, adopt a philosophy that the universe is conspiring for your success, right? So the process is just a condensed version of that, whatever the process is. Because I didn't say it's gonna be easy. You know, there's a difficulty factor that goes with that, but everything that you're looking for is on the other side of your threshold, right? It's just like working out, that you want to get the gains, but you have to be receptive to the pain. There's no other way around it. You feel me? So your threshold, you know, when you get past that uncomfortability factor and you barrel through, that's what you're looking for. You know, your gains and your payoff is on the other side of that. I would say learn what your voice is, right? It's very important that you learn what your voice is, because you're going to hear a lot of voices and a lot of people is going to tell you a lot of things. But have you sat with yourself long enough to decipher what your voice is and how it sounds? You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
Mm-hmm. And also have grace on yourself, because, again, it may not happen overnight. I've done a lot of things, but I fell forward on many things, right? Because I gave myself the grace to be able to make the mistakes that are needed and necessary for me to learn what I need to learn, right? To be stronger the next time.
Wow.
And to be able to, you know, my L's become lessons, and then I'm able to monetize that. You feel me? So there's nothing that I perceive that I can, you know, be in a situation wise that can't be flipped to something that, you know, becomes a learning moment, a teaching moment. Anything that I can learn from, I can turn around and teach.
Wow.
Which means that, you know, I can go outside and actually look for failure, because there's going to be more people that experience that than success.
Wow.
So I'm like, yeah, I could talk to a larger base based on these failures and attach to them emotionally. I don't want to trauma bond with you. You know what I'm saying? I want to help you work through the process using the same blueprint that I did, or shut up and listen to yours, right? Because I show up, you know, I'm a lecturer and a teacher as well, but I be showing up to these places to listen to the audience. Because I'm not stupid enough to think that I'm standing up there thinking that I know it all. I'm trusting the universe. And I know that whatever I need to hear in the universe may potentially come through somebody in that audience.
Well, they say listening, you should listen twice as much as you talk.
That part.
You know what I mean? You heard it here, guys, on Mud2TheSubs, Blue Pill.
Oh, man.
Tawfiq, Saeed.
This.
You know what I mean?
Do we got like a minute left?
No, for sure.
Yeah, so you brothers are moving into a space. Again, I ain't popping my collar just to say I've been on YouTube since 2007. And it was like a wasteland when I got there because there wasn't nobody there.
Right.
And my last channel got terminated. And it was October of last year because I put a post up on October 13th specifically because it was Friday the 13th last year. I remember I did this post and the situation in the Middle East had just popped off. Right. And I was being very respectful and I was attempting as best as I could as a reporter just to report the news. You know what I mean? I didn't say nothing insightful. I ain't say nothing spiteful. I ain't say none of that. I was just telling the news the same way that everyone else. I can't say everybody else, but the way that the news was reporting, I might have been giving them a little bit more than the news was saying, but it wasn't in bad taste. And I got caught a third strike because of that. And they wasn't even truthful. They was like, "Oh, you got a third strike because of spamming." I'm like, "What's spamming? I don't even know what that is." What you mean? Like I was trying to sell something? I'm just. So they snatched my page, and my page had been up for 14 years prior to that.
Wow.
With a lot of content, millions and millions and millions of views, but they had to monetize me. I mean, I've been dealing with YouTube and they stuff. Again, when I was on in 2007, this was before monetization. This when YouTube was only 15-minute long videos. But I still had 1 million. You know, I still figured out how to get 1 million views out of that. That was on my street knowledge page. This was on Know the Ledge TV. You know what I'm saying? I had started that in 2009. The same day that we taught Sinetta how to upload videos to YouTube, and he created Sinetta TV. So these are historic platforms in the community, and I just felt some way. But it forced me to go and do research because of how I felt. You know what I mean? I felt violated. And there was other YouTubers that was kind of like gleeful about that. People that I had helped put on was popping their collar. You know, like it was a competition and I was like they hit my battleship or something. And then rather than lash out, I was like, let me go and do my research so this never happens again. And they pushed me to a space and a place where I was able to find out some things that I don't think that too many people on YouTube know. And that's the fact that there's 26 different ways to monetize this content. And YouTube is collecting royalties off of people's content. And they're not only just collecting royalties, they're collecting royalties off of audio and video. And the royalties they collect are in perpetuity. So they're sharing ad revenue with content creators, which is 0.0000883% of a penny. Right? Of a penny. And that's just a one-time payment that they give you the smallest percentage possible, a fraction of a penny, one time. Right? If you're a big deal on YouTube and you done ran up 100,000 or whatever, however many views you made, right? You times that times 0.00083% of a cent. And that's what they're paying you one time. Whereas not only are they taking the lion's share of the ad revenue, they have 25 different ways that they're making money off your content. Wow. And one of the main ways is they're collecting mechanical royalties, right? And they're splitting the content up to make it, they're collecting it twice from audio royalty and a video royalty. And nobody knows about this.
Well, they say that you do consulting, right? So
I do, yes.
Shout out your Instagram so people can reach out if they want more information.
Yes, at Blue Pillar 44. So our latest venture is something called OTT, which is over the top.
Okay.
Right? So my over the top streaming network, right? So over the top is like you got cable TV and cable streams through a cable, but over the top streams over the internet through fiber optics. Right. And with this platform, this vehicle, I'm able to be a publisher, distributor, and a content creator. So I'm the artist, the record label, and the person that's responsible for going out and getting the royalties for the artist, but just in a form and a version of media, right? And this is something that I'm not only excited about because of how I can empower myself with my content, but every single other person on the planet that creates content. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully at some point we will be able to show them how to capture their value. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And content creation can be the universal base income for all people, not just melanated people. Meaning that if you got children and your children create content and you could show them, you know, again, on some YouTube stuff, like, yeah, you create X amount of pieces and you can make 4 racks a month or 4 racks a week or 4 racks a day, then the way to have a universal base income would just to be create content. And we naturally do that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's very empowering. My OTT is KTL Plus, and that's found on a network, a channel called Connect to Your City. It's on Apple, Roku, Fire Stick. You know what I'm saying? Anything that streams, you could go to Connect to Your City, and we got 150 channels under that, and KTL Plus is one of them. But I operate and work with all of them on that network, right? So we're able to offer syndication, right? We get all our, you know, the ad revenues on us, right? So all of them 150 channels go and get their own ad revenue. A percentage goes up, and then they keep the lion's share of it, and it rotates because every channel has a record, a radio situation as well, right? Yeah, okay. So we have digital streaming, and every channel has its own radio streaming. All of these are, again, multiple laterals of streaming about how you can collect revenue and you know, generate and create content. And it's just a nonstop exponential, because, you know, this time next year, this conversation is going to just be so different. Right, because we would have captured and realized so much value and really changed the game. And as I'm seeing Hollywood disintegrate, as I'm seeing the record industry disintegrate, as I'm seeing the gatekeepers, you know, crumble and fall into the ocean, that means that a new way is opening. That means there's a dawning of a new day. That means that there's a revolution taking place. You know, astrologically, it's called Pluto and Aquarius. You know, it's going to last for 20 years until 2044, where everything that we've seen is going to be like raised and just decimated and destroyed for a whole new reality. So I feel like I'm on the cusp of that. You know, all of this work that I've done leading up to this, it culminates into this pinnacle point. But I'm always been an individual that empowers the consortium. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just about us. It's about the creators. It's about the children. It's about the underdogs. You feel me?
Everybody.
Us, not them.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Well, I could talk about that type of stuff all day. You know what I mean? We love movement. We love growing and grinding, but we got to keep the editors happy.
Yes,
you know
yes,
I mean?
yes.
So we got to close out. But
yeah, you know,
pleasure, man,
and
for sure.
Again, the vision, you know, content creators all being in the subs.
Absolutely, man.
Building the subs full of content creators is what we looking at. So I look forward. Imagine, you know, a whole subs full of content creating houses. You know what I'm saying? People that have, you know what I mean, really leveled up based on this content that we creating. That's the vision. That's the beautiful thing. Let's bring them all from the mud to the subs.
Yes.
That's our story, baby, and we sticking to it.